With me now, Liberal Senator Zed Seselja and Shadow Immigration Minister Richard Marles. Richard, first to you for your reaction of over the tragic events of the last 24, 48 hours and the response from authorities.
Well, this has just been an appalling event, and it's one which has put Australia into the global spotlight. I think it's an event which is aimed to divide us and to bring out the worst in us. But what I think has been, something that's good that's come from it is if you look at that growing floral tribute in Martin Place, it's actually bringing out the best in Australia. And rather than dividing us, you see a nation coming together, and that is a really, really great thing. And it's so important that we do that, and it's so important that we rally around the families of Tori Johnson and Katrina Dawson, and of course all of those who were caught up in the siege, which could have happened, to any of us. Just before coming on air today, I had a coffee downstairs here at South Bank on Melbourne, and really I was doing precisely the same thing as they were doing 48 hours ago in Martin Place, and I think every Australian can empathise with this, and for that reason, and it's so important that we rally around those people now.
Indeed, and there are, of course, the questions to be answered as well as we move forward on a security sense. Richard Marles, I guess the question as immigration spokesman that I'd put to you is, and this is something that's been raised by including one of your fellow Labor MPs, the question around immigration and character checks and so on. Are there any implications that you can see at this very early stage, of course, when things remain raw, to say the least?
Well, it is an early stage, and it's important that we don't rush to hasty judgments. There is a robust system of processing people and assessing people's refugee claims. That said, we can always look at ways in which our system can be better. And actually, I think the Prime Minister's comments were correct when he said we can always be better at what we do. And it is important that there is a review of this, and it's important that we look at the circumstances surrounding this man and how he could be in the position that he was, and that we learn every lesson that can possibly be learnt from this. But having said that, I think at this early stage, our thoughts and our attention really must remain with the hostages and the victims of this siege and their families, and to make sure that as a country we respond to this in a unified way, that we come together, that we stand up against intolerance, and that we see this as an event which unites us rather than dividing us, because that is what was its intent.
Mike Baird yesterday, Zed Seselja, I think characterised it so well when he said that memorial, that makeshift memorial of flowers, was like the beating heart of the city. He handled that so well, and obviously a tough, awful day for his city and his state.
Yeah, look, and I think that this is a time when when leaders need to be at the forefront in I guess comforting a community. But what we are seeing is a community responding to these tragic events, responding in our very own way, in expressing our sympathies for the victims, expressing our solidarity. Not just with their families, but of course those who were caught up. I mean, it's there are two tragic deaths here, but also there are many people who were damaged, who will be damaged by what would have been an amazingly traumatic event. So I think the response is one that we would expect from Australians. We do come together in these circumstances. It's legitimate that we not only send our thoughts and our prayers and our condolences to the families, but of course we look to learn the lessons from this tragic incident.
Indeed. Richard Marles, terror experts and international affairs, intelligence analysts, they agree that this sort of individual, this warped person, is the sort of character that is attracted to the warped ideology of the likes of IS and their like-minded organisations. That's what we're dealing with here, isn't it? I mean, you could talk about one crazed gunman, but that is the sort of individual that is attracted to the warped ideology of those groups.
I think that's right, Kieran. And what IS has done is I think, take the stage of global terrorism to a new place, one which is much more brutal than we've seen. Brutality is really the way in which IS goes about its business and then appeals to others to engage in that kind of raw brutality. And as Dan Tehan said, David Irvine has warned us of this kind of lone wolf attack. And it does mean that there is a new challenge that our authorities have to respond to, just as they responded to new challenges in the aftermath of September 11. And it is important that as a nation we get on top of that. That said, we do have amongst the best intelligence organisations in the world. We have amongst the best law enforcement agencies in the world. And when you look at the way in which they responded to this crisis, you can only take your hat off to their incredible professionalism. And we are being kept as safe as it is possible for us to be kept by virtue of the professionalism of our authorities. And there is a sense, obviously, in the light of what's occurred over the last couple of days, that our world does seem a little less safe than it did on Sunday. But we should take some comfort from the fact that we have amongst the most professional law enforcement and security agencies in the world.
Yeah, exactly, and long may that be the case. Senator Seselja, on the issue of the perversion of Islam that this person used to, justify his atrocity, is obviously we've seen the group leaders of the Islamic community come out and condemn it. How important is it that continues, that engagement continues with the vast bulk of moderate Islamic followers in this country?
Oh, look, there's no doubt it's critically important because, we rightly expect that Muslim leaders, amongst others, will be horrified and will condemn these kind of attacks and these kind of atrocities. But it's, of course, important because we don't want to see radicalised youth in this country. And unfortunately, of course, we're not talking youth in this particular case, but we don't want to see a radicalised element in Australia. We know, unfortunately, that there are a small proportion who are radicalised. We know that some have gone overseas to fight. We know that some intend to do us harm here. Can I, in echoing what Richard said in terms of our intelligence agencies, I think that's important to emphasise the quality of our intelligence agencies, but I think also to acknowledge the great challenge that we face with this kind of attack. It is a very, very difficult thing for any agency to be able to guard against when you have one individual who goes and takes these actions, perhaps with no coordination with anyone else. That is the great challenge that is faced right now, and I think that's why it's so important that we are always looking at ways that we can better equip ASIO and our intelligence agencies and give them the best possible framework to deal with these kind of things.
Gentlemen, unfortunately we're out of time this morning, but thanks so much for your contribution this morning and throughout the year. I wish you both a safe Christmas and New Year.
Same to you.